Welcome to this little kind of half an hour, 30-minute talk on yoga, or life, I guess, as we delve into some more knowledge, okay, as opposed to, this is an interesting thing, okay, the difference between knowledge and information. This is quite an interesting topic because what we're all doing is that we think that the internet is giving us knowledge, but all we're getting is information. Well, I mean, it depends. So if I've heard about somewhere, like London or something, and I've read all about it, and I know all about, okay, that word about, if I know all about London, but I haven't been there, then I still just know all about. And so I still got to turn that knowledge into, that information into knowledge, right? I've got to go and experience it for myself, right? And when it comes to this, yoga, this is the most amazing word, okay? Yoga. We are experiencing yoga 24/7, 365. 24/7, yeah, 365, all the time, never mind, non-stop. So the topic for today's talk is experiencing yoga every nanosecond. In fact, all we are experiencing is oneness, completeness, And the beauty of it is, nothing you need to do can add anything to that completeness, right? And nothing you do can take anything away from that completeness. So why am I feeling so incomplete all the time? Right? If there's just completeness yoga happening all the time. So what's happening with these beautiful exercises that we do with yoga and meditation, etc., which was developed over time, thousands of years, is what happens is we suspend this thought of ourselves for a moment in time, and we get a glimpse of the union or the oneness that everybody's calling yoga. We would call yoga yuj. So yoking to oneness. But now the beauty of this tradition is that you discover all that is preparation for the fact that you already are inseparably part of this oneness. Nothing can separate you from it. It's impossible. So the hot topic, this is crazy, the hot topic on every billboard for sort of tropical island retreats, etc., is connect to your higher self. So where did we lose the connection that we have to connect or whatever to our higher self? And since when did the self get to go to a tropical island without me? How did that, without you? How did that work? You got to go and find yourself on some island or in the Himalayas somewhere. How did it get there without you? It's impossible, okay? It's impossible. And then once you get to Himalayas, probably find some old guy sitting in a cave there and saying, so you go inside, you meet him, and what is he going to tell you? What are you looking for? I'm looking for myself. Oh, it's already the one looking. It is already the truth that we are looking for. So the oneness that we feel and experience in yoga, in meditation, in rituals, whatever we're doing, is just the oneness that is already present as ourselves. Okay, so that's why I said in this talk now, there's no time when yoga is not. Does it suddenly pitch up just because we pitch up on our mat? Does peace suddenly arrive just because we start saying Shanti, Shanti, or start making a mantra? No. And you find that, please think about it, just because you're saying Shanti, peace, what's happening? Who is the Devi? Who is the God of the mantra? You. You are the meaning of the mantra. Because what the mantra is doing is pointing out, or reminding rather, the user of the mantra of the truth that is themselves. There is no other truth. It's impossible. So we are never separate from oneness. In fact, when you talk about yoga, it's the only constant. There is no other constant. There's only oneness. So sorry guys, I get a bit, when it hits me, you know, but what we're talking about is so funny, because to talk about non-dualism or non-dual teachings, and I've expressed this before on social media, to talk about non-duality when there's no such thing as duality. How many creations are there? In creation there's infinite amounts of creation, but creation itself, one. You know? One. Sky, how many space, how many spaces are there? One space, one silence. You know? And so this is the beauty of this whole thing. When you go on this journey to discover yourself, instead of finding there's two of you, you find there's always been only one of you, right? Where did the two come from? And so where this two, or idea of duality, comes from is from like a tiny little thought that we've been talking about in the last few weeks with this talks at this time on Inside Time, which is the I thought. The I thought, unbelievable. I mean, what happens is, existing in this universe, creation, call it whatever we want, you know, who names it first of all? We do, right? Naming what? Naming the nameless. And then we name everything. Trees, birds, plants, flowers, you know, water, everything in creation gets a name. And then what comes along? We name ourselves. Why? Because names just differentiate. So the name that we're given just differentiates us from another human being, me from you. So like, you know, we all have our own names, but what we make the mistake of doing is taking the name to be who we are, to be the truth of who we are. How can I be my name? First of all, I am present. First, I have to be there. To have a name, I have to be existing, right? So all that the name is doing is naming this body, John, right? Or whatever our name is. But what happens is we take the name to be who we are, and then that splits us. Because we take it to be who we are. But when were we ever split or separate? You know, born out of the same creation, same oneness, same yoga, right? All of us. Same, like, just take the example of a wave in the ocean. Is there a wave ever? So born, the wave is born. It's a beautiful metaphor, this, right? And creation is a metaphor for yourself. The whole creation is doing this all day long, all the time. So this wave born out of the ocean, right? Where does wave come from? It comes from ocean. Where is it going? Okay. Have you ever watched the waves? We're living here now near the ocean, and try and have yourself a bit of fun, you know. Watch the waves. They're all trying to escape the ocean. It's really funny. No wave has ever escaped the ocean. So like, the wave is the wave ever separate from the ocean? Never. It just appears separate. It appears to be separate. So the wave born out of the ocean, where is it going to go? It can only go back to ocean. So this body, take it for what it is, guys. This body is born out of creation. Where's it going to go? And this is what you learn first in yoga. You know, made out of earth, fire, water, air, space. This body. 5 elements. And it's in your hand. You've got the 5 elements already in your hand. Earth, fire, water, air, space. Right? And all the chakras. You've got the earth at the base of the spine, fire, water, earth, water, fire, air, space going up the spine. Okay? From this gross to the subtlest. Actually, are we going from the gross to the subtlest, or are we coming from the subtlest to the gross? Because what happens actually, you reverse it around, it's going the other way around. Before you're born, you're already the consciousness itself. Non-stop consciousness. Then you get to incarnate in this vehicle. It's just a vehicle, a body vehicle, body instrument, right? To take us around creation. And I mean, it's the best in the showroom. There's no better instrument than this body vehicle to go around the earth. I mean, have you ever watched your body when you're climbing over mountains and stuff, or swimming in the ocean or anything? It's amazing what it does. Come on. Climbing over the rocks, watch your ankles and your feet and how the whole mechanism is working. It's incredible. So the body, we get given this body, and when we take and then born out of creation, right? Born out of the 5 elements that are existing in this creation, which are earth, fire, water, air, space. Body takes its form, right? So what the body is an elemental wave. It's a wave made up of the 5 elements. And what's going to happen to the waves can't escape the ocean. So now what's going to happen to the body wave? Can it escape being in creation? Can it escape creation? Can we ever separate ourselves from universe, from creation? No, it's impossible. So this body is nothing but a miniature creation, a miniature universe. Unbelievable. And here we are walking around in it, but what we do is we've taken the illimitable, the limitless, and taken it to be a little name, right? Taking the name to be the truth of who we are, as though, this is the most beautiful thing in this teaching tradition, is as though. You can't really limit it, the unlimitable, limitless. It's impossible. But what happens is they're taking our name to be who we are, then the name, taking ownership of the name. Who's taking ownership of the name? We are, this I, right, which comes along. So we're born in this body, and when you're born, there's no I. There's no individuality, there's nothing. Nobody's born branded or anything. There's no name, right? It's nameless. Then all the names starting with the name that we get given by our parents, the names get given. And then what we do is we take the name to be who we are, which differentiates us from everybody else, and we see ourselves as different from everybody else. And then we have all this trouble. What trouble? All this nonsense of conflict going on. Is the creation ever in conflict? Is anything in the universe, nature, ever in conflict? Is the wave in conflict with the ocean? Drop in conflict with the wave? Nothing. So taking this name, never mind this name, all the names that we give to everything, starting with the name of ourselves, you come and get the download, depending on where you're born. If you're born in a Muslim country, you get a Muslim download. If you're born in China, you get Chinese download. If you're born in India, you get Indian download. Software comes in, names, right? And then we take that to be reality. Got nothing to do with the reality, but it's all to do with society. So what is the name for? The name is just a mechanism. Individuality that comes from the name and all that are just mechanisms that we use in society to get by, to transact, and to negotiate with each other. Right? If we didn't have those mechanisms, how are we going to talk to each other? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to build the cities and the infrastructure and the civilization that we built? forget it. Right? So that starts with the name, but what happens is you take the name to be the truth of who we are. And then what does that do? That separates us from the oneness, from the yoga. So how about that? So when you do practices and meditation and stuff, all I do is remove the separation. How long? Depending on when this I thought comes along, that's how it works, right? At the moment you do the meditation, you're sitting there thinking, and then the I come along and says, ooh, I'm so peaceful. Ruining the whole thing, right? Taking ownership of the peace. Do you have to say, I'm so peaceful to be peaceful? You know, it comes, never mind saying, do I have to say, I'm so peaceful to be peaceful? Do I have to say, I am the oneness to be one with creation? Ultimately, you recognize and discover, I is not needed. Right? Because all I, but you only need it for society, for talking to each other and communicating with each other. Beautiful. So we get blessed to use this word I. Right? But then what happens, it creates all this impression of division and duality, and then we get what we've got going on in the world right now with everybody shooting and crazy and going nuts and whatever we're doing. I mean, it's ridiculous. And who calls a country a country? We do. Does the country know that it's called that name? Hey? I mean, it doesn't even know. So when you talk about this, just look at it and think. Let's just think, you know? When two dogs are fighting over the bone, right? Is the bone ever joining the fight? Bone never fights. The country's not fighting, right? Countries are not fighting. Flags are not fighting. We invent all this and separate ourselves into these things, and we then love fighting each other and going crazy. So, you know, and then we go and we want to do meditation, yoga, and for a split second we experience oneness, which we were talking about earlier. For a moment, momentary oneness. Now, the time has come. Okay, if you've done yoga for how long, whatever, many times, get to know the oneness that is yourself. Because you are connecting to oneness. But now, why is this connection suddenly become disconnect? Why do I disconnect? The moment I go off my mat and walk down the street and walk into the world, where does the disconnect come in? Because of this I thought. Please see something. Okay, so when we're on the mat and we're doing yoga or meditating and so on, and great that we are doing that, fantastic, right? Because it's preparing the mind to accept the totality of yourself. You know, we limit ourselves down to this little word that we've got, firstly with a name, and then the word I comes along at about 2 years old. You know, before 2 years old, nobody's saying I. Only after about 2 years old, then we start saying, I want. Yeah? But we're that smart as human beings that we don't use the word I. We haven't got it yet. When we talk to our parents or people around us, we realize, ooh, they use a name to address us, right? They give us the name, and what do we do with the name? We use the name to get everybody else's attention, because we realize, ooh, it's very important to these people that we use this name. If you watch your kids, right, the moment they get a name, or parents, any parents, when you get the child who uses the name, we get all excited because, wow, they recognize their name. But what they're doing, they're using the name to get our attention. They don't say, I want you. They say, John wants, or whoever our name is, or whatever our name is. You know, whatever the name is, we use our name to get the attention of our parents, right? To get whatever we want. Coca-Cola. We want Whatever we want, we use the name we've been given to get their attention. And then, around about 2-3 years old, suddenly this I comes along, right? This ahamkara. If you studied yoga, this is the ego, you know? Which, I mean, the beautiful thing is the ego, is the most beautiful thing, because what does the ego do? You know what the job of this ego is? Going back to experiencing oneness constantly, 24/7, 365, the job of the ego is to finally bring you back to the oneness of yourself and resolve itself. Because all the time, all the ego is doing is saying, what am I doing here? And all it's trying to do is resolve every single thought for us. Until the thought is resolved, I'm talking about any thought, ice cream. Suddenly you get this thought of ice cream in the head, like we talked about it before, last week. Suddenly the ice cream thought comes along. Until the thought and the object meet, we can't relax. Who can't relax? I thought. Ego, ahamkara can't relax until it resolves that thought of the ice cream. Then what happens when you enjoy the ice cream, you eat the ice cream, what happens? Ego goes away. I thought is suspended for some time. It's not rocket science, guys. And in that little moment of eating the ice cream, what are we? Happy, wow, ice cream. Samadhi, right? Why? Because the I thought has gone away. And the thought of ice cream is no longer there. Until, while you're eating the ice cream, the next thought comes along and the I thought takes ownership of that. The ego takes ownership of that. So that becomes the next job of the ego to resolve that thought. Now, when do we experience absolute oneness and completeness without a disturbance? And I've said this before, every night, in deep sleep. It's absolute peace, absolute bliss. Why? There's no I thought. In deep sleep, the I gets suspended automatically. No longer do we know who we are. No longer do we know that we know, or we don't know. It's a state of total ignorance. That's the problem with deep sleep. So what happens with proper yoga, let's say, proper yoga is that we do it in our waking state. You know, so you've got 3 states of existence: waking, dream, deep sleep. Right? Now what happens? We are with ourselves in deep sleep, total bliss, called what in yoga? Any ideas? Sat, Chit, Anand. Okay? Total happiness, total bliss, Sat, Chit, Anandam. Okay, then we wake up in the morning. What happens? Who wakes up? I thought, ahamkara, the ego. And what does it do? It wakes up in the first thought that's available. I've got to go and do this, I've got to do that. So we become slaves to this I thought, right? And then, I've got to, you know, take a break. So we go and first of all it starts with the coffee, right? I've got to have the coffee before I can fire up the brain. And then, you know, it just becomes this I thought. So what are we actually doing? We are worshipping a thought. Why would I say worship? Because is anything else on someone's mind? Is there anything else that is the topic of conversation other than this I thought, right? And then when you get so tired, because it's exhausting, guys, this I is thought, until it resolves itself, it's exhausting everything. Every possibility gets exhausted, you know, until the thought itself is resolved. Then, what happens? Absolute bliss, absolute peace, okay? And this is where this teaching, which is the core of yoga, guys, this is the core. Self-knowledge, Atma Vidya, it's called. And it's the oldest teaching of mankind, and I've shared this before. Why do I say oldest? Because self timeless. Consciousness, unlimitable, timeless. So what happens? We are pure consciousness before we are born, then we get born, and what's being born? Body's being born in consciousness, right? And then what happens? You get lost in an I thought, right? And then, but we're not meant to stay lost. We're not meant to be like that, right? And we're beginning to sort of see that kind of awakening of like consciousness in human beings, you know, slowly, slowly, slowly breaking through, cracking the ice, you know, we're seeing this awakening, you know. But now what happens, oh, the biggest industry on the planet is spirituality. Whew, and everybody's getting lost, you know, in this now, you know, getting lost in, I have to connect with some higher self. When did self become so high that you can't connect with it? What you realize and you find out in self-knowledge, Atma Vidya, is that self, we've been with the highest all the time, 24/7, we just haven't realized it yet. Okay? And that's where this teaching comes in. So I would suggest to anybody who's doing anything in yoga, I'm serious, if there's no teaching called self-knowledge, Atma Vidya, on this teacher training or whatever you're doing, take it off the radar. I'm being really blatant. Because until you know self, there's no yoga. Self, consciousness, is the yoga itself. That we are left with, when we finished all the practices, all the meditation is done, you are left with nothing but pure, what is it? Sat. Consciousness. Sat, the word Sat means that which never alters, never changes, okay? Timelessly. And that is nothing but self, nothing but consciousness. It was there before we took on the name, took on the I thought, took on the idea of ourselves. It's there constant. If you took a whiteboard and you just drew a line across the whiteboard, just call that self. And what are we doing all day long? Connecting, touching, self, touching, touching, touching. When we have our coffee in the morning, bing! Right, like big bliss bubble. Okay, then you go away and then you think, let me call my buddy or go and see them. Go in and you connect again. And then you go and you have lunch, connect. And then you give a hug, connect. And then you listen to some music, connect. You know, so we're connecting to that self constantly, right? It's the only constant. And it is the yoga itself. Right? So connecting to that. And then in deep sleep, connect. How long? Depending on how you how many hours you sleep in deep sleep. So nature already gives you all the bliss in the world, right? And what happens every time we are enjoying a moment of happiness, we are connecting to ourselves. But we don't know what self is. We don't know. We attribute the happiness to the coffee. We attribute the happiness to a sunset or riding a horse or, you know, doing yoga. We attribute it to everything else except the one doing, you know. And one of the interesting things is when you're eating the ice cream, is the happiness in the ice cream or where is the happiness? Someone then introduces you to sugar, right? Because you always thought, oh, it was always in ice cream. But then they tell you, no, it's, when you're eating ice cream, you're enjoying sugar. So it's in the sugar, all right? Oh, wow. Then you go, oh, sugar. Okay? But then someone comes along and says, where is the happiness in the sugar? Is it in the sugar or are you the sweetness? End of the story. Okay? Where is the sweetness and the magic in yoga and meditation? In the practices or in you, the one doing? Right? And what you find in self-knowledge, Atma Vidya, please, the teaching which is, it's the oldest teaching of man, okay? When you go back and ask where it started, nobody knows. It's been the only teaching. It's the oldest teaching of mankind. Why? Because it's older than the Vedas. It's older than the Upanishads. It's always been. When you go and ask the teachers, where did you find this knowledge? From my teacher. Where did he find the knowledge? From his teacher. Where did his teacher find the knowledge? From his teacher. This is what's called a tradition, guys. It's called a parampara. It's an oral tradition that is never disintegrated or departed or gone anywhere. It's kept going. The only difference now is, the beauty is it's being taught in English. So yoga, the word, is the constant union or oneness that is existing in and through everything, in the plant, in the flower, in the seed, in the wave, in the bird, in the insect, in anything, in the mosquito, in everything. And also, does it mean the human being is excluded? No. Problem is, human being is that we are conscious of consciousness. Not a problem, it's the beauty of it, okay? So we know that we know. We know that we think, right? But we also know that we don't know. Okay? Which is where we get ourselves in crisis and in conflict. And that's the turning point, where we actually start to question. Knowing I exist, but not knowing what is existing or what existence means, right? When the idea, the thought of you that you've been developing all your life, your individuality, suddenly gets into conflict and crisis so bad that the next minute you don't recognize the person you are anymore. That kind of conflict, that kind of crisis, right? Where, that, God forbid you have to go through that kind of crisis. Do it before you get into that crisis. Get to know yourself, right? Before that crisis comes along. Because when that type of crisis comes along, not only is it the I that is in crisis, you are the cause of the crisis, right? You, not knowing yourself, become the crisis itself. And then, what do you do? You know, where do you go? It's not good standing on your head, meditating, trying to suspend this thought, and we never learn from any of that about the one looking, about the one seeing, the one experiencing, the knower. The whole idea of self-knowledge is to introduce us to the knower. So, let's just close our eyes and do a little brief meditation and just see how easy it is. Closing the eyes. Already present or not? Already conscious or not? Closing the eyes doesn't mark the beginning of consciousness. Like we said just now. The mantra doesn't mark the beginning of peace. Saying the word Shanti just reminds us of peace. That's why we use the shh when we want the baby to calm down. Shanti. The word for peace. What happens? The word itself, Shanti, disappears into the peace itself. The silence, which needs no words to be itself. Even the word silence cannot describe the silence. It has to eventually dissolve and disappear back into its source. the same thing with this word I. The word I cannot describe what it represents. It has to eventually resolve back into its source, consciousness, self, already present. Nothing you have to do. Like I said just now, closing your eyes, already present. Already conscious. Already the yoga itself. The oneness itself. Let's just listen to the sounds around us. Becoming aware of the sounds, notice, please, how no sound can escape the silence. Appearing to exist for some time. All sounds have to eventually disappear back into the silence. How long has silence been existing? How old is silence? When did silence first appear? Where does silence begin? Where does it end? Some say silence begins and ends with a sound, ending with a sound, beginning when the sound disappears. But all the time, silence never stops. It only appears that the sound is overwhelming silence, like a thought only appears to be overwhelming us. All the time, only consciousness, self, already present, exists. Like silence never changes. Consciousness, thought, is the only constant. Thoughts can't be constant. But consciousness, like the ocean, in which all the waves are appearing, never changes. Ever peaceful, ever the bliss itself is yourself. To be which nothing needs to be done. Already done. Effortlessly, changeless, permanent, undying, be the changeless, and enjoy every change. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharyamadhyamam Asmatacharyaparintam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So thank you. Lovely to see you all. We're here every day, whenever this is in your country at this time. But please join us as we share Atma Vidya, the knowledge of self and yoga, because without self, there's no yoga.